Ouch. Popular artist Chris Brown is reportedly in trouble with the IRS and has been slapped with a massive tax bill. Reports are showing that he owes the government over $4 million and the IRS has put a federal tax lien on his property. And listen, I personally like his music, but other than that, I don't pay much attention to his personal life, but as a tax professional, it definitely caught my attention when I heard that the IRS was after him. So I did some investigation, and today in this video, what I want to do is cover what happened to Chris Brown, what anyone who is self-employed or a business owner can potentially learn from this, and how to avoid this happening to you at all. And if you find this video valuable at any point while you're watching, then all I ever ask is that you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. That way other people like you can find this video. All right, let's go ahead and get started with number one, what happened? Now, first off, I have to say that the information I have are simply allegations and reports from popular media outlets, and sometimes we know they can twist up the truth, right? So keep that in mind. But I have to admit that the documents they have are pretty convincing. Go ahead and take a look at these documents from the Distractify staff where it shows his name, the revenue officer assigned to the case, and overall shares that he owes the government $4,044,596.76 based on 2 federal tax liens that have been filed and a tax lien from the state of California. So how did this happen? Well, first off, let me define 2 things, okay? Number one, what is a federal tax lien? All right, so a federal tax lien is when the government makes a claim against a person's property, which can be real estate, financial assets, or other personal property like your vehicles or jewelry. And this happens when you owe taxes and you have not paid them. These, of course, would be taxes like your federal taxes, your state taxes, your business taxes, maybe even your property taxes, just to name a few. So if you don't pay, then a tax lien gives the government a security interest in the property and serves as a notice that the government has the right to your assets, which basically means the IRS is putting you on notice that they can take legal action and seize and sell your property to satisfy outstanding tax debt. In the case of Mr. Chris Brown, the tax liens are said to be on his house and on his businesses. Now, you may have also heard of something called a federal tax levy, which is more serious than a tax lien because this is where the legal process to seize your assets actually start to begin. So a tax lien is kind of like the notice, the letter to say, hey, pay your taxes or we're going to take your property. And a tax levy is where they say, meet me in court because we're seizing your assets. So in the case of Mr. Brown, he still has some time before things get very serious. But if things did, does that mean he's going to jail? Well, not exactly, okay? Because jail time is reserved for those who commit tax evasion or tax fraud. And that is when you deliberately, like you intentionally avoid paying your true tax liability. Okay, these are when people lie about their income or they lie about their expenses or they make up business entities. Those are criminal charges and have substantial consequences. And no one here is accusing Mr. Chris Brown of tax fraud or tax evasion. Now, I believe the more likely case is that he's probably using an accountant or a financial advisor who is maybe his registered agent and has a power of attorney to make these type of financial payments on his behalf. And more than likely that person made a mistake. Maybe the tax returns were prepared incorrectly, or maybe he missed a tax payment somehow. Who knows? But one thing is for sure, Chris Brown's estimated net worth is $100 million and his tax liability is likely to be far greater than $4 million, which tells me that he likely did pay some taxes, but there was an error somewhere. So with all of that, let's talk about number 2, what we as self-employed business owners can learn from all of this. So I have 2 or 3 things, okay? Number 1, the obvious lesson is pay your taxes or else your property and your assets can be seized. Now, in the case of Mr. Brown, he fairly easily could cover a $4 million tax bill. He's fine. However, in more severe cases, some people could lose everything if they ignore paying their taxes and end up up getting audited and having a tax levy. For example, let's think big, right? Imagine you make $1 million a year. Well, at that income level, you could find yourself in the 50% total tax bracket based on federal and state tax rates. So maybe your tax liability will be somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000. But you ignore your tax payments, you don't pay anything in taxes, and instead you go out and you buy a $1 million house putting $200,000 down. Well, if the IRS audits you and you get hit with a tax levy, then you're going to have to pay back everything you owe, plus you're gonna get hit with some serious penalties and interest, which is something I laid out in my video about small business taxes for beginners. Anyway, they would likely have to sell your home to take care of your outstanding debt, and you could end up homeless. Now, obviously this is an exaggerated scenario, but hopefully you get the idea. Let's move on to lesson number 2. Check your mail and make sure your addresses are up to date. Imagine you owe the IRS, but you aren't getting notified simply because the letters are being sent to the wrong address. And then one day you end up being served with a tax lien. Well, we don't want that, right? So always make sure when you file your tax returns, you're using the correct address so you get any correspondence from the IRS. And if you're using a registered agent, then make sure he or she is currently operating. So that's a simple one. Then lesson number 3 is to have a tax plan, because based on Chris Brown's net worth, he could definitely put together a tax strategy like many other rich and wealthy individuals do to pay very little to $0 in taxes. However, many small business owners make the mistake of not worrying about their taxes until they see a huge bill. And usually by that time, it's too late. So be proactive. Which, by the way, if you need help with tax planning or tax preparation, go ahead and click the first link down in the description below to learn more about how we can help you. Now, how can you avoid all of this happening to you in the first place? Well, it's very simple, okay? You can avoid a federal tax lien by filing and paying your taxes in full on time. And of course, don't ignore letters or any mail that you receive from the IRS. And if you can't pay in full at that time, then you can follow a payment plan to help you settle some of your tax debt over time. Now, I'm sure Chris Brown is going to be able to take care of his tax bill no problem. He's rich, he makes a lot of money every year. But hopefully you found the story and the lessons in this video to be valuable so that you don't run into any serious problems with the IRS. Okay, coming up next, I have 2 more videos that you may enjoy as well, so check those out if you haven't already, and I'll see you over there.